Hi, welcome to the Long Branch Central Watershed Management Area Project Implementation Plan public meeting. My name is Shannon Bell. I'm one of the project managers for this project. We're going to be recording this presentation today. And before we get started, I wanted to go over a few housekeeping items. So during this presentation, we'd like to keep everybody on mute so we can get through all the speakers. And then if you have any questions, please feel free to type them in the chat. There is a little chat icon located in the upper right corner. And then you could just type your message and hit the send button in the lower right. So we're going to be monitoring the chat. And then we'll answer all the questions at the end of the presentation. And like I said, it's going to be recorded, so we will post this on our website after the meeting. So you can send it to anyone who missed the meeting and is interested in the project. So I wanted to go over what our agenda for the meeting. So welcome and orientation is going to be done by me. We'll have some introductory comments by Supervisor Walkinshaw. I thought I saw him on the line. Do you want to?
I'm here. Yeah, thank you, Shannon. I'll be very brief. As you can see, maybe I'm coming to you from my car in a dark parking lot off of Little River Turnpike. I just left the City of Fairfax City Council swearing in, so I wasn't able to get to my office or home in time. But I just want to thank you, Shannon, and the rest of the team for putting the time in to hold this meeting tonight, and especially the members of the community who are participating, many of whom have been participating in the process, the outreach process around this very important watershed project. And I think we're taking our community engagement and outreach to a new level with this project, and really have given the community and the surrounding neighborhoods the opportunity to play a role in designing this project and helping us determine exactly how we think about it and how to make it best work for the natural environment and the neighborhoods that surround it. So thank everyone in advance for the great work tonight and for the feedback you're going to provide to us. Thank you, Shannon.
Thank you. All right. So now I'm going to give you a brief project interview, kind of show you our team, what our schedule is like. Then we're going to have biohabitats talk about the implementation plan that they've been developing. And then we have John Burke with the Fairfax County Park Authority here to present their Watch the Green Grow program. And then we also have Willie Wood from the Northern Virginia Soil and Water Conservation District to talk about the services that they offer. And then we'll wrap it all up with questions that you guys have. So let's get started. So the Long Branch Central Watershed is shown on this slide. It is bounded by Burke Station Road and Wakefield Chapel, and then to the north and south by Little River Turnpike and Braddock Road. It's about 3.71 square miles, and there are 12 miles of stream located within it. So it's a pretty big project. So we have a pretty big design team. So within the county, we have the Department of Public Works, we have the Fairfax County Park Authority, Northern Virginia Soil and Water Conservation District, and public schools, who are all going to be involved. Our designer is Biohabitats. We're also going to have the Braddock District Supervisor's Office included in the design. And then we have a lot of stakeholder groups, including the Friends of Long Branch Stream Valley, Friends of Acatink Creek, or Sangha. We have the Stonehaven, Canterbury Woods, Red Fox, Rutherford, and Old Forge Surrey Court Square, Civic Association, all included, and then the Friends of Smokewood Park. So getting these community and groups involved is really important for us. We really appreciate getting your feedback this is your backyards. This is the stream valley that you guys interact with all the time. So we want to provide designs that you guys are going to be able to live with. And then there are a lot of other residents who have reached out to us during the design process so far that we're trying to include in our correspondence and design decisions that we've made. And we're willing to like add more. So if you're interested, please reach out. Here is a image of the contact people within the county and biohabitat. So if you have any questions, you can reach out to one of us and we'll be able to point you in the right direction and answer your question. So now we'll get into why we're doing this project. So Fairfax County is pretty large. We have over 1 million residents, and because of our size, we are required to have an MS4 permit. So an MS4 permit is a municipal separate storm sewer system permit. And it is it's important because it requires us to develop a program that will minimize the discharge of pollutants into the storm sewer. It also requires us to do a number of other things, but this limiting pollutant discharge is one of the drivers for this project. So the EPA came up with the Chesapeake Bay TMDL, which identified nitrogen, phosphorus, and sediment all as pollutants that impair the Chesapeake Bay. So stormwater planning, in Department of Public Works at Fairfax County, like we have been working to reduce nitrogen, phosphorus, and sediment that leaves the county through the projects we do. So through stream restorations, and pond and BMP retrofits. We're really close to satisfying this requirement, which is great. But DEQ has also come up with a list of TMDLs. So those are total maximum daily loads. So it's kind of like what we're allowed to release into our waterways. And so DEQ has come up with these local TMDLs. They've identified sediment, bacteria, PCBs, and chloride as all sources of pollutants that are contaminating our waterways. So we're looking to implement projects throughout the county to reduce these. In Long Branch, the TMDL that was identified is sediment. So our sediment reduction requirement given to us is 2,433 tons per year. So this is a pretty big lift. Our typical projects are about 1,000 to 5,000 linear feet of stream restoration. In order to achieve this reduction rate, we're going to have to do a lot of those projects. So the cool thing about this Long Branch Central Watershed Management Project is that we're looking at the entire watershed to figure out where we can implement these projects to get the maximum reduction requirement the reduction we can in order to meet this requirement. So that leads us into our project goals. So our project goal is to achieve the Long Branch Central TMDL waste load reduction requirement, which is to reduce the amount of sediment that is leaving the Long Branch watershed. We also want to provide long-term stability and a design solution that's going to provide low maintenance. We want to improve water quality within the Long Branch Central watershed, and we want to improve habitat and environmental health. So what have we done so far? We began the project in the fall of 2020, doing a watershed assessment. After this assessment, we had a number of public meetings kind of describing what our project is. Then we talked about the individual projects within the big project, and gave the community a chance to give us comments back. We've addressed those comments and now are working on putting together an implementation plan. So the order that we're going to be working on the projects, both in design and in construction. So we're hoping to finish that plan next month in February of 2023. So once that's completed, we're we're going to hopefully finish the design of those first. So once the implementation plan is done, then we're going to start the design for the first couple projects on that implementation plan. We're hoping to get those design plans completed by the summer of 2024, and then looking to begin construction in the fall of 2024. Construction then is going to be ongoing through 2031. So once we finish the design, we'll start the next batch of design. And everything's going to be kind of like building off of each other, design, construction, design, construction. And that's going to continue through 2031. And then once these projects are completed, they're going to enter a warranty, monitoring, and maintenance phase. And that monitoring maintenance is going to finish in 2034. This schedule is all just the plan right now, and it's going to be dependent on future funding. So we just to go over what we did. We assessed about 12 miles of stream in the Long Branch Central Watershed that included about 150 outfalls, and we also looked at some county-maintained stormwater facilities. Through this assessment, we found 20 projects that we think will be really good projects to help meet that sediment TMDL. And improve the watershed. So we're looking at improving about 6.5 miles of stream, 75 outfalls, and then we also have the option to renovate and retrofit some county stormwater facilities. So here is a map of the 20 proposed projects that we identified through the assessment portion of the project. So these projects are grouped by location. They are primarily focused on outfalls and stream channels, and then we have 3 optional pond retrofits. So now that we have the projects kind of figured out where they're going to be, our next step when we move into design is going to be developing individual project goals for each area. So it's a big watershed, so the conditions change throughout it. Some areas have really poor stream quality, while others have high stream quality. Same thing with the floodplain. We have good treed areas and then poor veg areas. So with the individual designs, we're going to be looking at the project conditions. We're going to focus on restoring highly degraded channels to stop erosion. We're going to look to avoid impacts to the higher quality areas, including in the stream and then in the floodplain forest. One thing that we heard from you about your comment feedback during the project evaluation phase was that you were very concerned about trail impacts and tree loss. So one of our goals during each project phase will be to minimize the amount of trees that we're taking and to reduce the amount of trail impacts that we have. So we'll probably try to aim our design to avoid those. And then we're also going to be looking to improve ecological function as much as we can, where possible. So then that kind of leads us to the implementation plan. So Jennifer, if you want to take over.
Sure. Thank you, Shannon. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I'll go ahead and share my screen. Okay, Shannon, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Excellent. So today I want to present to you the implementation work plan that Biohabitats developed in collaboration with Fairfax County, as well as the design team and stakeholders that we've worked with over the last 2.5 years. The presentation I'm giving you today is actually an excerpt from the implementation work plan itself, and the full implementation work plan can be downloaded from the county's website for this project. So to start, the implementation work plan, again, is kind of the culmination of about 2.5 years of work. So it provides an overview of the initial watershed assessment work that we did, it provides an overview of recommended projects, it discusses project grouping and phasing for implementation, it presents a proposed work plan schedule, it provides an overview of monitoring completed to date, as well as monitoring planned going forward. And also it summarizes some restoration techniques that we'll be using as part of this, when we're designing these projects. So again, I'm not going to go over all of this today. A lot of this we covered during our last public meeting in April 2023, specifically the introduction to the potential projects as well as restoration techniques. So today I'll be focused on giving you an overview and introduction to the project again, especially for those of you who haven't joined us at prior public meetings, and then really kind of hit and highlight on updates we've made since April of last year. So to start, just an overview of the overall process. The overall approach to restoring Long Branch really consists of 4 phases. The first phase we are nearing completion of was to develop the implementation work plan. To do that, we conducted extensive field assessment, project identification, and prioritization, and I'll talk a little about that in a little bit more detail. Next, we'll be moving into conceptual design and then final design, permitting, and construction. Pre and post construction monitoring is ongoing and will last the entire length of the project, as will public and stakeholder outreach and involvement. So some of the initial assessment work that we did really started off with desktop assessment to develop a baseline understanding of the existing watershed. Shannon gave you an overview about 3.7 square miles, really dominated by residential land use. The team conducted extensive field assessments to understand existing conditions in the watershed. We looked at the stream itself, as well as the riparian corridor and the vegetation within the corridor. We tried to develop an understanding of erosion in the watershed. We looked at things like conflicts with utilities, points of interest from residents, outfall issues, as well as existing stormwater practices and specifically stormwater ponds that are maintained by the county that could be improved upon. We took that work and developed a prioritization process that looked to that balanced ecological benefits, ancillary benefits, and feasibility to really identify the stream reaches that were a priority for restoration. And those stream reaches are highlighted in red lines on this map. We also looked at floodplain vegetation quality to understand low quality versus high quality vegetation. And again, that is highlighted in colors ranging from kind of a pinkish color to a green color on the map. We also did some preliminary environmentally sensitive areas mapping that looked at and mapped specifically streams, the resource protection areas, wetlands, the floodplains, trails, our existing monitoring stations, as well as feedback that we have gotten from stakeholders, from you all, via the public input map that we have on the county website. So this used existing data only, and more detailed assessments of environmentally sensitive areas will be conducted prior to design work for each project area. That work culminated in the identification of a number of restoration projects. We have identified 15 stream restoration projects. There are 2 projects that combine stream restoration with retrofit of existing stormwater ponds. And then there are 3 standalone stormwater pond retrofit projects. So the aggregation, so basically we had these prioritized reaches, we aggregated them into projects, and that aggregation was really driven by proximity, access, project synergies, and stakeholder concerns, and kind of a whole slew of factors to kind of get to a point where we defined these project boundaries. The implementation plan provides a lot more detail on these different projects, and we really went over this aspect of the implementation plan in detail last spring at our last public meeting. So at that point, we had introduced each of the projects. Again, in the implementation plan, it provides kind of the implementation main document itself provides a brief overview of each project, but then there is an appendix, an attachment that has those more detailed project descriptions that some of you may have seen in our previous public meeting. And that project description, those project descriptions have been updated based on the feedback that we have received from the stakeholders during the public comment period, and also through the summer and this fall through emails to the county, as well as input on our public input map, as well as input from our design team. So the current version does reflect that input. And just as a refresher, each project description includes kind of a summary page that has a locator map on it, a narrative summary of what the proposed project is, photos of existing conditions, a map of the project location and restoration opportunity. Then it gets into a lot more detail that has a lot more narrative definition and description of our proposed restoration approach and likely project goals, includes a feasibility summary, as well as our preliminary pollutant reduction estimates associated with the project. And then I think finally, the thing I really wanted to emphasize is that we have included with each project description a summary table of all comments received through, I think we cut off at September of this year, with the comment as well as how we have responded to this comment. So in some cases, we addressed the comments either in the graphic or in the narrative of the project description itself. In some cases, the comments are at a level of detail that we haven't gotten to yet. So those comments we are kind of keeping in our files in these project descriptions, and we'll be pulling those comments back up as we begin the design of each project. So we wanted to make sure that the feedback that we have gotten from everyone has not been lost, but that we are continuing to track that as we move forward. And we are continuing to log and track comments as they come in. So I just showed an example of for Ilda Pool. Ilda Pool and Willow Woods are the first two projects that are being proposed in the implementation phasing. So again, with Willow Woods, we have received a number of comments that we have, some of which have been addressed, some of which we kind of have needed to file, and we will revisit when and as we are starting design for the project. And then the third project in sequence is Kristen Lane to Rutherford Park. We received a number of comments on this project, and they have all, again, been documented within the project description. So I would encourage you all to go to, if you're interested in this, to go ahead and go to the county website, and you can download these project descriptions there. So moving on, we have, since we last met in April, we have developed project groupings for implementation. We developed two sets of groupings, one for design and one for construction. The design groupings, we have 9 design groupings, so we'll be looking at multiple projects at once as we move through the design process. And the design groupings bundle adjacent projects so that upstream and downstream influences can be better understood during the design process. We have proposed 15 construction groupings. These consist primarily of standalone projects, although there are a few that have been bundled to reduce overall disturbance and trail interference. Design and construction will begin in the tributaries and headwaters and work downstream. We'll be proposing that ponds be retrofitted prior to downstream reaches being restored. In addition, we've developed a schedule to go along with that, and I'll present that a little later in the presentation. But the project groupings for design are outlined here. Again, we have 9 groupings for design, where we're really starting with what we call our early action projects. So Willow Woods, Ilda Pool, Kristen Lane, the Ollie Lane Regional Pond, Old Forge Park. Then we'll move up to the headwaters for design, and then move our way down the main stem. I think perhaps you're a little bit more interested in construction, since this is going to be far more visual and perhaps have an impact on your use of the trails and what you see out there. So again, we have 15 groupings for construction. Again, we're starting with kind of our tributary or early action projects. So really starting off with the first proposed project for construction being Ilda Pool and Willow Woods. These projects we think can either be grouped for construction or can be constructed separately. I think that'll be determined a little bit later on down the road. From there, we would move to the project at Kristen Lane to Rutherford Park. Then to the regional stormwater pond on Ollie Lane. And then Old Forge Park. So these are considered again, kind of our early action tributary projects. From there, we'd be moving up to the headwaters, starting with the 2 stormwater ponds, kind of at the northernmost end of the watershed. Then move to Smokewood Park North and Somerset from Saraline Drive to Dance Court. Then we move on to Smokewood South and Dance Court to Flint Ridge Court. These 2 projects we feel can be grouped or constructed independently. We are proposing that they be grouped to reduce disturbance and to allow for the use of the same access point for construction for both projects. From there, we'd move downstream to what we consider kind of the upper main stem to Old Creek, from Old Creek Elementary School to Pickett Road, and from Pickett Road to Terra Drive. Then we get down to Rutherford Park and have 2 projects that'll be combined there, Rutherford Park and L. James Drive to Rutherford Park. And then downstream of Guinea Road to Tabard Place. And then finally, we get to the lower main stem. So with 3 separate projects for construction. So Tabard Place to Woodland Way to Dora Court, and the Long Branch Stream Valley Park down to Cockney Court. And then finally, the lower end of the main stem, the Stream Valley Park, as well as Canterbury Woods Park. So that is the proposed schedule. That's the proposed phasing for implementation. And a schedule has been developed to go along with this. The schedule assumes that design begins in the spring of 2023, and then construction would begin in the fall of 2024. Active construction would run through the fall of 2031, with all construction completed in the spring or summer of 2032. And that lag is for things like post warranty walks and landscape checks and things like that. So all the active construction, machines in the stream would be done hopefully in 2031. And then post-construction monitoring, assuming a 5-year monitoring period, would extend through 2037. To get to this point, we use specific assumptions regarding different phases of the project. The design duration for each project is going to vary based on complexity and length, anywhere from generally 14.5 to 28 months. We're assuming that bidding will have a 3-month duration, and that construction duration will range anywhere from 3 to 19 months, again, depending on the project complexity and the length. But of that 3 to 19 months, active construction duration will likely range from only 1 to 9 months. Again, the 1 to 9 months, that's where we have dirt being moved, equipment in the stream, rocks being installed, vegetation being installed, very active construction. We're generally assuming that pre-construction monitoring has a 24-month duration, although for some of our early action projects, it will have about an 18-month duration. And we are assuming that post-construction monitoring may last as long as 5 years once construction is complete. So that being said, here's just a graphic of the schedule. Again, these are the early action projects where design will begin this spring, and construction will begin in fall of 2024 and run through 2026. Moving to the Headwaters projects, design will start actually this summer of 2023, and construction will run potentially 2025 through 2027. The upper main stem projects, design would begin in the winter of 2025, and construction would run 2027 through 2029. And then finally, the lower main stem projects, design would begin in summer of 2026, and construction would run 2029 through 2032. And again, it's a slightly longer construction period because those are far more complex and challenging projects once we get to the lower main stem. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Greg Zucknick, to speak to our monitoring work. Greg is a scientist with Biohabitats and has led all of our assessment work and is actively involved in our monitoring and will be involved in our design going forward.
Thanks, Jennifer, and thank you everyone for attending today, or this evening. Our monitoring is broken into two main kind of categories. First is the watershed-wide monitoring, which looks at the watershed as a whole. And then we've also broken it down into project-specific monitoring, which will look at the goals of each individual project. We have this starting pre-construction, as Jennifer mentioned. We aim to have 2 years of pre-construction data to create a nice baseline, and we'll be looking at approximately 5 years of monitoring post-construction. We've gone over the schedule a little bit, but we've already started the watershed-wide monitoring back in the fall of 2021. And this is being conducted by Fairfax County, the USGS, as well as Biohabitats. We're going to be getting our next round of monitoring, the year 2, in this year, beginning shortly in the next couple months. And the project-specific monitoring will also begin this spring. We base the monitoring on the goals of each project, which is based on the Fairfax Ecological Recovery Wheel and the Stream Function Pyramid. And then the series, the goals themselves align with both the wheel and the pyramid. So we develop the monitoring parameters to fit the goals, and then each of these is involved in the project. So each project will have the goal, we create a parameter to match it. Throughout the design process, we'll also be updating these goals, which will then in turn modify any monitoring we do post-construction and during the design process. Next. This is a map. Went too far. This is a map of the watershed and where our monitoring locations for the watershed-wide monitoring are. We have 8 locations starting at the downstream end, working our way through the main stem. So far, we've done 1 year of monitoring, and this includes flow monitoring and hydrology, erosion and sediment monitoring, geomorphology, and biology. Next.
Sorry, Greg, my computer's responding slowly.
No problem.
There we go.
So initially in year 1, we started with our flow monitoring and hydrology. This is done by installing groundwater wells. These are tubes that are dug into the ground, and we have pressure sensors that give us feedback on how much water is above that point, so we can reference it to the ground surface. We use loggers to do this, and it gives us a constant reading of the water levels. This was done at 8 locations. However, 2 of the upstream locations were vandalized, so we only have 6 locations that are actively logging data. We are working to replace those. And at each location, we have 3 wells that are installed across the floodplain, starting at the stream and going out to as far as we can, really, to generally to the toe of slope, or I believe is 5 bankful widths out into the floodplain. Next. This is an example graph of the data that is output from our monitoring. Along the x-axis, we have our date, and on the y-axis is a depth. The green line towards the top is the ground surface, and the red line is 1 foot below the ground surface, which is our target groundwater reconnection level. The blue line shows the level of the water being collected, and ideally, what we would see is a consistent line, and our goal is to increase the height of that line to where the red line would be. The spikes you see in the blue line are generally correspond with large rain events, so the stream would increase in level and the groundwater would react as well. Next. This is the same graph. However, this shows the connection between the three groundwater wells in each transect. So as you can see, we have some that are a little bit higher up, which may be closer to the TOA slope, and then moving down would be towards an incised stream. So the goal would be to get these closer together and higher up as we can. Next. Additionally, with the flow monitoring, we have installed time-lapse photography. Think of this as a movie that just takes snapshots every several minutes. So this way we can document the flow within the channel in a kind of non-data prohibitive way. In the upper picture, as you can see, this is our baseline condition. This is the typical flow you'd see throughout the day. And then the lower picture shows a mid-storm event where the stream itself rises. We have these positioned in two different locations, and each location has 3 cameras, one looking upstream and one looking at each of the left and the right bank. And we also coordinated these near USGS stations that we can monitor what the actual flow level is through their monitoring. The goal is to have this deployed for several months to try to capture 4 significant rain events that would cause an out-of-bank flow. So far, as you can see in the lower picture, we're getting close, though we have not seen a storm actually exit the banks yet and access the floodplain. So we'll be continuing monitoring, and we'll be targeting the summer for some of those larger storms. We'll also be able to download rain gauge data, also from the USGS, and hydrographs from those monitoring stations I mentioned that they're carrying. And we can compare the photo evidence that we're gaining with those the real-time data that they're providing. Next. Additionally, we are, as we mentioned, one of the main goals is sediment reduction. So one of the ways we're tracking this is at each of the 8 locations, we installed a series of bank pins. And again, at each monitoring location, we have 3 sets of bank pins located at different reaches that are typical of the project or of the reach to show the amount of erosion happening. At each location or each set, we have bank pins installed from the stream bed up the bank. And those bank pins are simply rods that are 2 to 4 feet long, driven into the bank. And we measure them, how much of that rod is exposed in relation to the bank itself. This is called the protrusion, and that will give us a rate of how far the bank is eroding over time. Next slide. This is a photo of one of the bank pins installed. As you can see, in this location, we have 4 bank pins, one of which is in the bed of the stream, so we can track vertical movement. And then we have 3 in the bank itself to track the lateral extent. In the right picture, the middle rod is a great visual of how much these banks are eroding. So initially they were installed in March of 2022. And this was taken in December of 2022. Initially, there were only 3 or 4 inches of that rod exposed, and on this picture, you can see almost a foot of it. So we've had almost 9 inches of erosion in that short amount of time. Next, please. We're also conducting cross sections. This is a measurement of incremental measurements through the floodplain, the channel, and then back out into the floodplain so we can capture the geometry at several locations throughout the watershed. This is at each monitoring location, 1 riffle and 1 pool are both surveyed. And we try to capture 5 widths, channel widths out into the floodplain. We're monitoring these 1 time per year, typically in leaf-off conditions, so we can have good visual access across the floodplain. We've done 1 year so far in March of 2022, and we'll be resurveying them again in 2023. We'll be putting these into graphs, and every year post, we'll be monitoring, comparing them year to year. Next. This is the graph. This is a graph of the cross section. The black line is the bank itself, with the x-axis being width and the y-axis being the elevation. The blue line is the bank full elevation, and the red line is the flood-prone area. As you can see in the picture and reflected in the graph, there is a near vertical, sheer bank on the right, where the stream pressure is really increasing, and then on the left is a depositional feature. I think I saw a question come up about photos. Yes, so we're monitoring for 4 events. We're doing this just for comparison purposes of how much rain it takes to get out of bank, and we're trying to capture 4 instances, simply because they typically don't happen that frequently. So we're being a little optimistic of trying to capture 4 within a year, and this will give us a good framework of the amount of rain it takes to get out of bank. So if we just had one data point, we may have been a little skewed. The storm could have been traveling downstream and may have not taken as much. So this would give us the best opportunity to find an average amount of rain to get that stream out of bank.
Thanks, Greg. Okay, we'll keep going to eDNA.
Yep. Next, we're doing biological sampling. We've started this with our eDNA sampling, or the environmental DNA. This is done by collecting water samples, and it is then sent off to a lab and processed through a PCR testing, or that is a polymerase chain reaction that simply amplifies the DNA signatures. And this allows the lab to find those DNA sequences and compare them to a database, and that will show us which species are not only within the stream, but in the surrounding areas. This database is being updated frequently, so if there are missing pieces or ones that are not known, those can be found throughout. The table at the lower end of the screen shows some of the output. It shows the family and genus and species of those species, and then it also shows what confidence match it has. This was done early in, or twice in 2022, in April and August. We'll be continuing monitoring. When we get to project-specific goals, we'll also be doing physical collection of benthic macroinvertebrates and fish, and this will corroborate our data and give us another baseline to base our restoration goals off of. Next. Lastly, for biology, we'll be collecting leaf pack and coarse woody debris data. These are simply logs, limbs, trees, and the leaf packs that come off of them, and how they enter the stream and how long they stay. This will give us information on habitat availability, habitat diversity, carbon inputs, food sources for macroinvertebrates. We're conducting these at 4 locations, so kind of almost every other monitoring station going up the watershed. And again, this will be giving us data to base our design off of, as well as really knowing where we need to do a little bit more diversity design for diversity of habitat. Next. As I mentioned, we're starting our project-specific monitoring. It'll be starting in a few months this year and will continue to next year. This is for the first batch of projects, which includes Ilda Pool, Willow Woods, Kristen Lane, Old Forge Park, and Smokewood North as the stream restoration projects, as well as the Ollie Lane, Holly Park, and Newcomb Ponds for these stormwater facility retrofits. Again, for this, we'll be doing similar monitoring for the hydrology, erosion and sediment, the geomorphology, biology, as well as additional riparian vegetation monitoring. Next.
Thanks, Greg. With that, I just wanted to reiterate the implementation work plan is available on Fairfax County's website. Hopefully you all have the link to that, but you can download the implementation plan, the detailed schedule, and the detailed project descriptions. In addition, we're always looking for input. So of course we'll have time for questions today, but you can always go to the public input map that is linked off of the county website and give us input on this map, in addition to contacting Charles or Shannon directly with any input that you have. So with that, I will turn it back over to Shannon.
Great. Thanks, Jennifer and Greg. So next up, we have John Burke to talk about the Park Authority and Watch the Green Grow program.
Good evening, everyone. So I'm here to briefly discuss a couple ongoing Fairfax County Park Authority initiatives, which are also occurring in the Long Branch Watershed in conjunction with this project. Both of these programs are community-driven and community-focused programs. So the first we'll talk about is Watch the Green Grow. And it is a program run by the Resource Management Division within Fairfax County Park Authority. So Watch the Green Grow is a community-focused outreach program, essentially, which aims at educating and promoting responsible land use and management, particularly on private property and especially in floodplains. It encourages and trains and highlights the actions of residents, HOAs, and businesses to improve on land management strategies on their own properties through a number of actions, like I said, behavioral changes and projects. These include things like reducing the use of pesticides, leaving grass clippings on the ground when you mow, reducing your total lawn area, and promoting things like native plants instead of turf grass. It could also be things like identifying and removing invasive plants from your property, fixing bare earth in your yard to prevent erosion and establishing ground cover, or even something as simple as planting native trees. So to support these land management strategies on private property with HOAs, businesses, in some cases schools, Watch the Green Grow provides outreach and educational materials for managing these properties. It produces things like classes, signs, other forms of trainings, even electronic story maps that can be viewed online, and hosts events that also serve as partnering opportunities for Park Authority. FCPA staff who manage this program specialize in running and engaging these sort of activities, working with HOAs and residents to make these sort of broad improvements countywide. So here you can see on the map some of the occurrences that have taken place throughout the county and even outside of it. People that are engaged in this program, whether they are residents, businesses, or others, can share the work that they're doing on their property that benefits natural areas. So again, you can see that here. If somebody, for example, implements environmentally friendly practices in their yard, they can upload pictures to our website to show the progress, and each positive report essentially triggers a green spot on this map. So hence the name Watch the Green Grow. And as more of these activities occur and as the outreach and education expands through businesses, residents, landowners, things like that, the green areas will expand on the map as well. It really provides a powerful picture of environmental stewardship in our community. And here again, you can see how these activities are occurring in Fairfax as well as outside of Fairfax, and multiple instances within the Long Branch watershed. So if you or your HOA would like to learn more, you can reach out to Alex Marstal. Her information's right here. She runs the program, or you can check out the FCPA website. We are always looking for opportunities to partner for environmental improvement initiatives, and coupling the improvements on private property through the Watch the Green Grow program with this broader large-scale watershed scale stream restoration project, kind of a two-pronged approach to improving water quality and reducing erosion in the Long Branch watershed. Again, the staff that run this program specialize in organizing green community projects and helping organize community management events. So I definitely encourage you to reach out or at least explore this program to improve land management at your home, HOA, school, business, or place of worship in the Long Branch watershed. Then one other program that is also happening in conjunction or in addition to the Long Branch program and Watch the Green Grow is the IMA program. This is the Invasive Management Area program. This is an extremely popular and broad program, which is highly visible throughout the county, incorporates numerous volunteers, advocacy groups, and other stakeholders to essentially manage invasive plants on Park Authority property. The program is run by the Park Authority's Natural Resource Branch, but it would not be possible without partnership with friends groups and resident volunteers. The program has multiple parts or multiple initiatives that it uses to control invasive plant spread throughout the county. We assess parkland through a non-native invasive assessment protocol. So essentially, summer interns are trained on how to use the protocol to help assess quality of forested parkland and identifying infestations of invasive species, including in the Long Branch watershed. We also hire contractors under the IMA program to treat invasive plants, stopping their spread, also occurring in the Long Branch watershed. We hire contractors to help identify and manage early detection rapid response species, which are species of invasive plants that we would like to control before they become more pervasive. But most critically, IMA staff train and support IMA volunteer site leaders in Fairfax County Park Authority projects. These site leaders support the Park Authority mission by encouraging and involving other citizens to take stewardship roles in their local parks, enabling the parks to be utilized for generations to come and reducing the overall spread of invasive plants. Again, this is occurring in Long Branch as we speak, as well as throughout the county. Currently, there are around 73 site managers and around 65 sites throughout Fairfax County that manage volunteer work groups of various sizes in the IMA program. And the IMA program supports the Park Authority mission to encourage and involve citizens to take stewardship roles similar to the Watch the Green Grow program and local parks, again, contributing to the two-pronged benefit of local community involvement and environmental improvement, as well as the Long Branch restorations effort to improve it on the watershed scale. Within Long Branch, we have 3 IMA sites. We have the Long Branch Stream Valley Park IMA site, which was established in 2011, the Old Forge Park IMA site, established in 2022, and the Rutherford Park site, which was established in 2011. And I should note as well that a key partner for Fairfax County Park Authority, Earth Sangha, also contributes greatly at Rutherford Park, removing invasive plants and establishing native plantings. So if any of you all are interested or know folks who might be interested in volunteering with IMA or to become a site leader or supporting any of these existing sites within Long Branch, I encourage you to check out the IMA page on the Fairfax County Park Authority website. And with that, I'll pass the gavel, so to speak. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, John. So next up, we have Willie Wood with the Soil and Water Conservation District. So he'll be sharing what his organization does.
And thank you, Shannon. Let me try the magic of sharing. And please tell me if you see my presentation.
Yeah, I got it. I can see it.
Great. So good evening, everyone. My name is Willie Wood, and I'm with the Northern Virginia Soil and Water Conservation District. And I'm here this evening just to talk about what we do in terms of partnership and collaboration throughout Fairfax County, with special reference to Long Branch itself. For those who don't know, the Northern Virginia Soil and Water Conservation District is a quasi-government agency that is funded partly by Fairfax County itself, partly by the Commonwealth of Virginia, and partly by our own revenue, the district's revenue. It is governed by a 5-member board of directors, 2 of whom are appointed board members, and 3 are actually, they're actually elected members. Of importance is the fact that we have a very small organization of only about 8 people And those 8 people really run the organization. But you would agree with me that without partnership and collaboration, we really cannot do much. Our efforts spread throughout Fairfax County, and I would try to reference as much as I can within Long Branch itself. To our board of directors, the board of supervisors, I'm not sure if Supervisor Walkinshaw is still here. I want to let them know that we owe a debt of appreciation to them for funding our programs, because they contribute a lion's share of our funding that helps us to survive and move to the next level. Let me just hasten to say that today I want to talk to you about did my slide change yet?
I'm still seeing partnerships and collaborative programs, Willie.
Oh, okay, I need to get the slide to change for me then. Tell me if anything changed yet. I'm getting a little challenge here. I thought I wasn't changing much.
Yeah, sometimes it's slow on the program.
How about now? Still there? Still the same?
Still the same one.
Okay. Well, I want to tell you about our collaboration efforts and our partnership efforts. I try to group them into 3 parts, and hopefully as I talk, this will decide to wake up and move forward. We have some projects that have gone past already. There's what we'll call recently completed projects. We have some that are current, and we have others that are actually pending, that is to be implemented. Let me just talk briefly about the recently completed projects that we have. And one special reference is that of the running bamboo, which actually our board of supervisors partnered with our board of directors rather, partnered with the board of supervisors, and they were able to accomplish the running bamboo ordinance, which actually has been approved and would expect to come into enforcement this year, early part of this year. Another one is one of the urban agricultural grant that we have. It's important to mention that the Board of Supervisors did actually give us the mandate to approve soil and water quality conservation plans that are according to the calls of the Chesapeake Bay Preservation Program. But in addition to that, we came to realize that Fairfax County itself has a unique sense of agriculture, and they are more specialized in urban type of agriculture. So we talk about urban agricultural practices. If you see me fidget, it's just because I'm trying to see if I can get this to change. But anyway, with that, because we know that the urban agriculture is of importance to Fairfax County itself, we applied for a grant through the National Association of Conservation Districts, and we were able to get a $50,000 grant, which we used to help areas that are economically challenged, that we sometimes refer to as food deserts, to provide them with technical knowledge and abilities to be able to grow their own food, healthy food that they can eat for them, grow and eat for themselves. And with that, we also have a partnership in some of the invasive plant management issues that John mentioned already. Our Board of Supervisors, again, were able to work with the Fairfax County Park Authority IMA program, and we put together, with their partnership as well, what is called the Plant This, Not That, and is a very colorful brochure that helps our residents to know what they can use on their properties to ensure that we get support of the residents are educated to grow the right thing and reintroduce native vegetation into our plants, into our flora and fauna. Another type of partnership we have really has to do with the VCAP and the CAP program. VCAP being the Virginia Conservation Assistance Program, and the CAP being the Conservation Assistance Program. These are very similar programs. One is funded by the state, one is funded by the county. And I think I saw I saw Judy Frazier in one of this things. Judy is one of the leaders of our VCAP and CAP program, and that is indeed a banner program for the district. They have taken the program and are running with it. Very successful program, and all this, what this does for us is to look at the local impact residents, homeowner associations, schools, places of worship can make within their limits of their property to make a difference in water quality and water quantity. I wish I could have shown you one of the projects that's just got approved by our technical review committee, wherein it's a case where there's a yard inlet within a property that has a huge driveway and grassy area all draining towards this inlet. Prior to the program or the project, there was grass around this yard inlet. Grass is not very good, and you can see that erosion was taking place, and into that inlet was a potential for petroleum to flow into it, potential for fertilization done on the lawn itself, to excess fertilizer to flow into the yard inlet. And what our VCAP program did for them was to actually remove the grass from around the inlet, planted some new native vegetation, and also use a lot of mulch to hold that area in place. What this does with the runoff in terms of helping it is it slows it down considerably, and the process of slowing it down, potential organic material, potential fertilizer, potential pesticide, and any other form of pollution gets filtered out from using the mulch itself, and by the time it gets into the inlet, it is relatively cleaned. And so that's one way that we use our VCAP to help our environment in terms of water quality and instead of water quantity improvement. Another thing we can talk about in terms of partnership is our already very popular residential technical assistance. This is a case where, again, our focus is to improve water quality and conserve natural resources. And in one of the instances, the picture I had here to show you was a situation in which there's a townhouse community at the lower part of a steep hill. And above the steep hill is another residential community with huge parking lot where water was coming from the higher elevation, running down into the backyard of the townhomes and flooding the basements. So we got there, and with our technical expertise, we were able to advise that they install a swale along the slope so it can intercept the runoff from the higher elevation and convey that into a channel that's about a quarter of a mile away. And that solved the problem. It increased property values. It took away runoff that was usually going to the backyards of this townhome properties, and generally solved lots of the problems that we were facing. And another partnership, which is now, those are partnerships that are pending, has to do with the Charge Up Fairfax program. This is a new program that's coming into existence, and we're partnering with the Office of Energy and Environmental Coordination, and we're looking at being able to work with those offices and assist homeowner associations to have electric vehicle charging stations within their communities. It doesn't end there. We're also partnering with the Fairfax County Stormwater Management Division under the Department of Public Works and Environmental Services. This is a three-pronged operation that's coming in, wherein funds are being provided to address flood mitigation, address stream bank stabilization, and address restoration of low-impact development facilities within private properties. All of those things, the things that we do, both within the Long Branch watershed and outside of that, and the whole of Fairfax. It's a shame my slides didn't cooperate with me this evening, but those were some good slides, and if you would like me to share that with you later on, Shannon, I'll be happy to do that.
Yeah, that would be great.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Willie.
Yeah. Let me see if I can just stop this sharing here. All right. Yeah.
So I have one more thing to go over before we get to discussion and questions. So there is one more like outreach opportunity. Brian Campbell from the Friends of Long Branch is going to be reaching out to some of the communities in the watershed about some upcoming watershed education opportunities. And they do a biannual stream cleanup and scavenger hunt. So that hasn't been scheduled yet, but once it is scheduled, he is going to be reaching out with more information. So anyone who wants to be involved, keep an eye out for that. And then the other thing that I wanted to talk about is coordinating with the communities. As I mentioned, it's really important getting community feedback for us and the success of our projects. So if any of the civic associations or HOAs have upcoming community meetings that they would like us to participate in, me and Charles are available to attend virtually. And if there is interest in any of those groups for us to come out and do a stream walk with them in the spring when the weather is a little nicer, we are definitely willing to do that. Just reach out again to either me or Charles, and we can look at our schedules and fit it in. So our contact information is shown on this slide. If you want, you can also go to our website and submit any comments. But we are here to help make this project better. And your input is greatly appreciated. So I think Charles had answered a lot of the questions that had come in. I don't know if there had been any other ones. But we can
Shannon, there were two. One was from Philip, one was from Sandy. Philip and
Yeah.
Sandy, are those answers? Did they get to what you were asking, or was there more to that?
For me, they were good, so it's fine. Just understanding how the permitting has been incorporated into the design schedule.
And Sandy, I know we've talked on other projects where there have been questions about how projects were designed and how they were permitted. One of the things I want to really reemphasize the community is we've not designed anything. All we've done is come up with ideas, and we've asked for the feedback from the community on those ideas. This phase is putting together the work plan, which is all subject to funding, which we're working very hard to get all the funding in place. But we need the community to help us design the projects, and the permitting will follow the design. So I just want to, I know a couple of folks reached out about, what's the status, what's the design, and we want to make sure, and we appreciate the fact that we as staff are accountable to the community, and that we need you guys to help us in that process, and we won't do anything without your input.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that's it. But if anybody has any questions that they come up with, please email me or Charles, and we will get back to you.
Well, if I could bring up one other thing.
Yes, please, Philip.
It's not quite the focus of tonight's meeting, but we did touch on it a little bit, and that is that we look forward to the resumption of the public outreach portion of the project. There are rich opportunities to enhance the impact of the project by increasing public awareness and understanding and participation on private or community property. And we heard about Watch the Green Grow and VCAP tonight, and those would be excellent partners for the project in reaching out to the public and enhancing the impact. More of a comment than a question, I guess.
Yeah,
no, that's great. I'll say too that in addition to Brian, I saw Matt Bright was on tonight, and we know there's a lot of communities along the watershed that certainly have reached out to us at different times. And we certainly don't know all of the issues that folks have, but we are very much open. And I think what we want it to be is kind of a consortium, that there are things we can do within our project limits and there's things we can't do. we want to be part of the conversation about how to do larger scale work within the community, even those things that are outside of our project limits that maybe requires a different partner. So we're happy to participate in all those conversations.
And let me just mention it as well. We do very much appreciate the lighter touch that these projects are going to take on the land and the attention to ecological monitoring as well, before and after.
Sophie's got her hand up.
Hi, yes, my name's Sophie Dupre. I live along the restoration area, and I was wondering about how you're planning on connecting citizens to the resources you've pointed out in this presentation. Obviously, there's only a handful of us here, but in terms of, for example, the VCAP or the Watch Green Grow, a lot of those things I think a lot of people are interested in, but they just don't know that these resources exist. So if there's an ability in the design process to include wayfinding options that connect people with these resources, I think it could be really helpful for incorporating the other 53% of the watershed area that is private property as well.
So I agree. I think it's important to spread the word about these programs, which is why we invited Watch the Green Grow to come and speak about their program. So hopefully we can get the word out about it. And then we'll continue to do this throughout the design process when we get to those individual projects and working with the smaller community groups. Like everyone will talk about this program. So hopefully we can get more people investing in it.
So Shannon, getting,
Go ahead, Willie.
I was just going to say, getting to us regarding interest in a VCAP or CAP program is pretty straightforward. If you can just send us an email with your concerns that you have, and photos help us as well. You can send it by email to our frontline address, which is simple. It's Conservation District, one word, Conservation District at fairfaxcounty.gov. We'll get it, and our staff would respond to you at the earliest possibility, and they can start working with you. It starts with an assessment of the site to see what kind of practice would be of ideal use to address your natural resource concern, and then the rest of it is just working with the staff and trying to get things going.
In a similar manner, Watch the Green Grow can talk to any interested individual homeowners or HOAs, or civic associations. The program manager, Alex Marstall, I've copied and pasted her information there in the chat, but it's also available on the FCPA website if you just search Watch the Green Grow or the first hit in Google. And I definitely encourage you to check it out. We do active outreach and advertising for these programs, and IMA has signs up on any of their projects, so we will definitely be incorporating those elements into the partnership on this project, and definitely encourage you to check both of them out. But we'll make sure that they are easy to find as far as how they're involved in this effort or where they are adjacent to it, where they're occurring adjacent to it.
Thank you so much. I was just interested in terms of the fact that Fairfax County is a largely aging community. A lot of the online resources aren't particularly accessible. So if there's an opportunity for this this overall restoration to also include signs that are more easily accessible, that could be an opportunity to incorporate more citizens. So thank you.
Signs is something that we've definitely been talking about, trying to come up with the best way to kind of present the there's a lot of information that we could share. So trying to figure out the best information to present and how and where to locate those signs. So that's been an ongoing discussion. So hopefully we can start getting some of those up soon.
Great,
Brian?
thank you.
Hey, thanks everyone. I just wanted to follow up on Sophie's comment. I've been involved with this project from the onset, and one of the big emphasis was community involvement in it, as you've heard throughout the entire presentation, but specifically with public outreach and education efforts. And one of the things that Philip Latassa from Friends of Acatine Creek and myself and Sandy Collins from Friends of Acatine have emphasized is kind of this collaborative effort of getting people from Park Authority like John Burke and Alexandra Marstal and Watch the Green Grow and Willie Wood, and getting us all together in one group to do specifically what you suggested, is come up with a way to make a comprehensive list of all these great programs that the community may not know about, but would definitely aid in the success of the actual projects that Shannon and Charles are trying to implement within the park system, and do the public outreach to do and look for opportunities like the stream cleanups that I try to organize, or if there's any kind of outreach publicly, or community events that these these programs can set up tables to present that kind of information. So if it's something that you're interested in, that you have a passion for, I would encourage you to email Shannon and/or Charles and put you in touch with myself, so you can help provide some input on any kind of ideas you think would be of use to try and get the information out to communities.
Great, thank you so much.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any comments?
There's a hand up, but oh, Brian's hand's still up. Brian, do you have another thing?
Nope, sorry, I apologize.
No worries, man.
Hi, it's Frank from Supervisor Walkinshaw's office. Just wanted to say thank you to everybody, our county staff, our advocates, Soil and Water Conservation Board. It's clear that you all are very committed to this long-term project, and the level of detail and how much you know about what impacts this stream. It's impressive, and shows that we're in good hands here in the Braddock District. So thank you.
All right. So that's it. I think we'll probably wrap up the meeting. Thanks for coming. We'll post this to our website along with the presentation. So anyone who missed the meeting can watch it and also look at all the information on the presentation as well. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shannon.
Thanks, Shannon.
Thank you.